You've got to be very careful if you search for this K-drama series on the web. D.P. could result in something you're not necessarily looking for. This series that's based on a webtoon debuted over the weekend, and D.P. stands for Deserter Pursuit. So should you be binging it? A young private's assignment to capture army deserters reveals the painful reality endured by each enlistee during his compulsory call of duty. So when I watched the trailer for this, I kinda got a buddy cop vibe mixed with some drama. Now this series lies most heavily in the drama genre, with some moments and sequences of lighthearted and even silly antics. The majority of the show ends up being pretty heavy. I believe there's a large social commentary that is at play here, especially as it pertains to the South Korean military. But even if that's just the fictional background for the events, the commentary holds true and really is a universal message. Every male is required to serve in the military, with only very few exceptions. And like many other institutions or organizations, there is a hierarchy that's in place. This series depicts a very abusive and bullying atmosphere, where senior conscripts lord over the junior ones, teasing them, beating them, humiliating them, and just generally abusing them. So when many have had enough, they take any opportunity they can to hightail it off the base and hopefully escape. Now there are other reasons that people will go AWOL, but whenever someone deserts, a special division of the military police are dispatched to bring them back, and that's where we get DP, or Deserter Pursuit. Our main character Jun-ho is quiet and contemplative. He's extremely observant, which is why he's then tapped for DP, but he's also got quite a lot of talent for reading situations and people. At first he's teamed with one partner, and that case has some issues, and then we get to see just how deeply Jun-ho is committed. I found him to have a lot of charisma. And he's almost a sympathetic character, but we don't have to feel sorry for him. I really began to enjoy him, and I liked what he brought to the stories. There's a lot to his story, but we don't get a ton that's delved into. We understand the gist based on some quick conversations, and I think it was ultimately enough to make me invested in him. His second partner is Ho-yeol, and this guy is a bit goofy, but he's also almost instantly likable. Despite being a bit of a class clown, he's incredibly talented and good at his job. He comes off as an oaf, but that's more of a persona than his actual mental state. The chemistry between he and Jun-ho becomes fun to watch, as they can sometimes be like oil and water. Ho-yeol also provides the humor when it's present, and because he is slightly aloof, he approaches situations differently, but just as effectively as Jun-ho. The series is 6 episodes, with each about 45 to 50 minutes in length. Now the first episode will probably take the most patience to get through. I found that it was the driest and the least compelling. During this time though, so much is being established. Those details, and some of them may even seem mundane, are very important to all that we are going to watch play out through the rest of the series. So if you're watching the first ep and kind of questioning whether or not you should continue, I suggest giving it another episode, where the show picks up the pace, and I think you're going to find yourself more invested in the characters and the narrative. Now the show doesn't become an all-out action thriller though. It does maintain a patience to it, which does cause some unevenness in the pacing. The overall tone of the show is pretty dark. Now the show plays out as sort of a detective series, where the two main characters have to follow the clues to figure out where the deserter they're chasing could have gone. In order to do that, they also have to get into the soldier's head to find out where they might be or who could know the whereabouts. As we dive into the stories of the deserters, sometimes the reasonings are touching and at other times are infuriating, but I found that each time they're heartbreaking. The ongoing topic of bullying and harassment is covered well, and the show does address the mental ramifications that come from being bullied. There are even some times where characters pointedly ask what is going to be done about the situations now that those in authority are aware. And I appreciate that this was addressed several times as it begins to assign responsibility to what's occurring. I think some of the bullying instances were jumbled, making the reasonings behind each experience not as clear, but this did work to reinforce the larger message and show just the scope of the bullying. I enjoyed the storylines in each episode and found myself increasingly invested in the story. While just about every episode dealt with a new case, the overall story was still progressing to build the world around our characters. This helped to create some really good tension surrounding all levels of the players. When the show got to the final 2 episodes, they were incredibly tense with a growing urgency. Our characters are under a sort of time constraint, and based on the pursuit that they're on, there is a good deal of anxiety that is created because the outcome has the potential to be explosive. I like that we get to see some character growth in a few of the players, and while I expected to see growth from Jun Ho and even some from Ho Yal, another character displays some surprising progress, and it was good to experience. Now, this isn't a show that will leave you with a huge smile on your face. Now, that's not to say that it's not entertaining or executed well, because it really is. The characters are intriguing, and the cases can be exciting. The general tone of the show, though, is dour and slightly depressing. And I think some of that comes because while cases may have resolutions, the larger situation is still more of a futile struggle, one that can't be solved quickly, even though it should be. As the show wraps up, you may feel a bit in the bell jar or even be left with a slight feeling of hopelessness. Now, there is a mid-credit scene at the end of the last episode, so don't turn it off immediately, as it does add a poignant cap to the show. So overall, D.P. is a dark drama that tackles the issues of bullying. And despite it using the backdrop of the Korean Army to address this issue, the message has universal applications. The acting is well done, creating some very palpable character situations, leading to a very tense climax. And while the first portion of the show will take patience to get into, and the pacing can be uneven throughout the course of the show, I believe we're rewarded at the end with an effective drama and a resonant message. There's no sex, brief nudity, a lot of profanity, and a lot of brutal violence. I give D.P. 3.5 out of 5 couches. Are you a fan of K-dramas? What are some that I should add to my list to check out? I'd love to hear your recommendations in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.